Welcome back to Women Making Moves, where we celebrate the moves that women are making. My name is Amy Pons. I'm a Master Certified Life Coach and an Energy Healer. I'm joined today with Jeni Rogers. Jeni would like to say, do you wish you could crack the code on earning more money without working longer hours, taking on clients that don't light you up, or using the icky, exhausting, and harmful business practices of late-stage capitalism? Jeni's got you covered. Since 2019, her events, workshops, and coaching programs have helped over 2,000 heart-guided solopreneurs revamp their relationship with money, time, energy, and soul to design and grow financially flourishing, positive change service businesses. Using her love activist leadership approach, Jeni's clients earn more money and reach exciting income goals without letting unnecessary fears, worry, or stress get in the way. On any given weekday, you'll find this avid learner. She's got a Presidio MBA and a PhD in nature-centered rites of passage, strolling the Texas Hill Country's oak-shaded limestone trails with her best friend of nearly 2 decades. Jeni, welcome.
Hello, Amy. It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on the show.
You know, of course, in all divine timing, your bio, and I make a point not to read bios before the actual moment of the episode because I like to be present.
In the moment.
Yeah, I like to be present, conscious toward what I just read. And amazingly, I am this person you're talking about in this bio. And so maybe you'll have a client at some point with me. What's interesting to me is that I know in my deepest soul, what I'm doing, feeling, being is incredibly not only soul-led, but my true purpose here. And there is still energy in me, and I'm feeling that it pulls in my first chakra and flows up a little bit toward my second and third that are so rooted in my value is directly correlated to the money that I make. And what's interesting as I say that out loud, it's like, for starters, I wish I could charge $0 for all the work that I do, because the space that I hold is literally priceless and invaluable. I would offer that to anyone in the world. And today, as of today, at 9:41 a.m. Central Standard Time, it still requires money to have basic needs in life. So I both struggle. There's still a big part of me through my awakening that struggles between having money be part of my awakening. And also I'm in a little bit of a lull right now with new business. I'm trying to keep the panics at bay because, of course, I'm safe and secure. And someone's like, you just got to trust yourself in your business. Jeni, I trust myself in my business with everything I have. And those still generate somewhere.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Amy. I have big compassion. Your story is my story at different times in my life. It's the story, I think, of probably everyone who's listening to this podcast. I just want to normalize it. It's something that we grapple with as folks who are in business for ourselves, who are not only spiritual, but also care about creating positive change in the world, both through creating new cultural values around love and abundance and care, but also for being as positive forces as we can be in contributing to the healing of our planet. We care about future generations. We care about the land. We're typically, maybe not across the board, but typically we're highly sensitive people. We are empathic and we feel deeply. And we really do care about doing good work in the world. And we care about contributing to the health and well-being of our clients. So it's totally natural for us. We're doing work that we love, that lights us up, that's aligned and congruent with our soul's mission in this lifetime. And money comes into the picture and it's like, well, I don't really care about money. I'm not motivated by money. And plus, I've seen the harms that, our current economic systems globally in countries that are operating under global capitalism have caused. So why would we want to be part of that, right? I'd rather just opt out.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. The reason I struggle with it is because the moment I think about it, it puts me into a lack or fear space, scarcity,
Yeah.
because I do need it to survive.
Yeah. And there's so much tied into, in the background, tied into that conundrum around doing work that's really positive for people and planet and not sacrificing ourselves, not sacrificing our safety, our health, our well-being. And so it's really kind of the linchpin that I think transformed through. And I wouldn't say I've reached any state of nirvana awakening with it, but I certainly have a relationship where I can be in partnership with money in a new way. And this is kind of the linchpin, that pivot point that clients who I serve are grappling with as well, exactly the one that you're grappling with. And I think what the opportunity is, and what I found personally and with those who I've supported and worked with, is transforming our relationship with money. So I very strongly believe that as humanity is evolving in our own consciousness, and of course, right now we are in a time of great dis-ease. And to me, that's a signal that consciousness is changing. And just as we are evolving as a humanity, the earth is alive and evolving with all of her dynamic systems. I believe that we can approach money from the perspective of evolving as well. And some people will be like, oh, but that's not logical or whatever. Well, you know what? We are human beings. We make meaning out of story and archetypes. So I have found that relating to money as a conscious soul being and understanding that we can come into a sacred relationship with money, who is also on this conscious evolution and actually wants us as soul-led solopreneurs to thrive and wants us to come into a loving, right relationship with money. And what I found myself is going from being a consultant, where I didn't struggle with building proposals and pitching and winning business on my own in my own practice for $20, $30, $40,000, for a brand strategy. It was like no big deal for me. But when I switched my business to coaching and doing work that really mattered, suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How can I charge for this? This isn't right. Like, I had these ethical dilemmas. And when I came into this relationship of actually money wants to be my ally, everything started to transform. And the other thing is this idea of there is no one size fits all approach. We want to come into a really clear understanding of what enoughness is for us, right? We live in this culture that is all about accumulation, consumerism, extraction, and this insatiable appetite. And the overstory in our cultures is that we got to make more and more and more. But I think what we're shifting to is this place of really coming into alignment with what is enough for us, what is sufficient, as Lynn Twist says so beautifully in her book, The Soul of Money. What is sufficient for us to live a life that feels nourishing and safe and contribute to our families, our friends, our community, the world in a way that there's enough? And getting really clear on that number and coming from a place of neutrality with money as an ally is a beautiful place to start. And then it's really also about learning to be kind and gentle with ourselves, building this loving relationship with the fact that we're building our business differently. And it doesn't look like other businesses. Like, I'm a total nerd and I nerd out on business building in general. So I follow pro marketers. I follow people who are not HSP and not empathic, who build businesses, and they just approach it in a totally different way. And sometimes I'm like, well, why can't I just be like that? But the fact is I'm not. And so building that self-compassion and that capacity to be like, this is who I am. This is what I care about. And it's okay for me to have a different relationship with money. And it's okay for me to build my relationships with my clients in a way that doesn't look like what mainstream business or mainstream coaching advice, typically looks like.
Thank you so much for that. And it's amazing how I have the ability to walk a client through all that you just said. And then when it comes to ourselves, I do love the thought of what does it really require? Actually, one of my coaches, I have many, one of my coaches, she shares, if you're not making money right now, is it because you don't need it? I'm like, interesting. But I don't want to wait until I need it to make money. And also, it's almost like every individual is like a dollar sign. I didn't like that. And I know that my abilities are worth anything that anyone can invest in me. And by investing in me, you're investing in yourself. And so it's a larger energetic exchange. And then when it gets down to brass tacks, again, because I would be happy as a clam all day, every day doing what I'm doing. It's not like when I don't have clients, active new business, that I'm just like hanging out. That's not what I'm doing, So it's still, to your point, giving grace to myself that I'm a year and a half out of that high octane, multi six figures types of vibe. And so finding that space for myself, because in my mind's eye, in my sixth chakra, she's like, what you doing? What are you talking about? Everything is perfect and beautiful and amazing. And everything that you want to reach in this life has already happened. Meaning, because time doesn't exist on this whole plane, like they're looking at me like, what are you talking about? Like I've reached the highest heights in this life already. It's just like walking the path energetically to align to it. And that sometimes gets challenging.
Yeah, living in this, what I, call this between time. We're moving, I think, out of the beliefs, stories, mythologies of late stage capitalism and into something new. And I call it a post-capitalist world. I'm not really big on the anti-capitalist trope because I feel like it just puts me right in this metaphor of fighting against it. And really, I just want to make it irrelevant and birth something completely new. And in that, living in that tension, we also live with a lot of paradoxes, right? And I think that one of the things that I've noticed for myself and others like us is that there is a place where we can shift in understanding that, yes, money is this energetic exchange. And when we are working with clients who are really on board with us and aligned and want to not only receive their own, benefits, they also are the kind of people who want you to thrive as a coach, as a consultant, as a healer, as a designer, whatever your service industry might be. And making that shift to money can actually be a way for them to give care to you. Mm-hmm. And having that sacred relationship with our clients and having money be something that is this exchange of love is something that has really helped me move through any kind of getting hung up on money coming in the way or coming between me and the fact that my work is priceless. Like, I don't believe in this whole thing of charge what you're worth, because we are priceless.
Priceless.
We need to charge what will sustain our livelihoods at a level that sustains us as service providers. Like, we can't see too many clients, especially as HSPs or empaths, because we'll burn out. But we can't see too few, because then we won't be able to give ourselves good, healthy care through good food, through paying our bills, etc. And so that shift of like, money can be an exchange of care and love.
I love that. That's really beautiful. And I like what you're saying too about capitalism. I sat down last year to write a book that would be about ending capitalism. And I moved quickly away from that. For me specifically, when I'm in the energy that I'm wanting to create and birth from a place of love, I don't find the need to point fingers and pet blame and, to your point, get into a fight. It's not about making something or someone wrong. It's about offering a new consideration of how we could do, work, live, be. So that kind of fell away. I use that example sometimes when I share with clients. When you are raising your vibration to the frequency in which you are meant to live on this plane, people, places, and things will fall away that don't resonate at that frequency. And a lot of times as humans, we want to say, okay, who, what, and where is that? I was like, well, that's not really how it works. That's an example of what you no longer feel strong resonance with. And that's what I mean by it just falls away. It just becomes irrelevant in your consciousness. When something has entered our consciousness, whether from the past or the present, it's either coming up to heal or to grow. And that's the cool thing. So for instance, as it relates to people, sometimes that can be really difficult because people that have been in your life forever, suddenly it doesn't resonate. It meaning the relationship, the vibe, something doesn't resonate, something doesn't land. Nothing malicious has to happen. It just, again, your consciousness doesn't resonate with their consciousness and it just kind of becomes infrequent. And then it becomes what it's supposed to beautifully become. But I think on the healing path, especially, or the consciousness path, when we find each other, it's really exciting because it can be very isolating, especially as you're transitioning from that place. So everything that we're saying, love it. I just actually made a post this week. I'm like, listen, y'all, I don't hate corporate. I don't hate capitalism. I don't hate anything. I don't dislike all these things. What I do not vibe with is that when an individual will use power to exert that power over someone else for a gain, that's what I don't vibe with. And so that's oftentimes what you do see in a workplace. And that's where, that's why I came off on my own. But when someone's living in the binary and not duality, it's a little bit harder to explain. Jeni, what moves are you excited to be making right now?
Well, I'm very excited that I have just launched a new Substack with kind of an underground podcast. At this point, it will go bigger once I feel like I've got a few episodes under my belt. But it's called Love Activist Luminaries, and it's on Substack. And the reason I went there is because I just was loving reading Substacks. And because I don't like being and haven't been on typical social media actively for years now, it's kind of a way to be in community in the most beautiful way without me having to go back and be active on Instagram or Facebook or what have you. And so I felt like it was a loving way to engage, that bigger field of, transformation and change and people who are on those similar journeys and going about it in a very peaceful, slow, calm, unorthodox way. So I'm really excited about that.
So I've never actually been on Substack. Is it an audio? Is it like a read?
Yeah, you can do either. So
Okay.
It started out really for writers, and it's been around several years now, but you can do a newsletter on Substack. And I've had an email list and I've, used different email marketing softwares over the years, but I always felt as an introvert, I like that it was kind of an intimate space for me to communicate, but I was taught email through email marketing, and that never felt resonant for me. I had a message that I wanted to be slightly different, and I maybe wanted to reach people who weren't necessarily on my email subscriber list. And I just found that Substack is a really beautiful way to accomplish that. In the last, more recently, they've added this element of audio and podcasting. So you can do both. And there's just so many cool newsletters on there. And it's kind of neat too, because you can play around with it. It doesn't cost you anything. Some people charge for subscriptions, like they'll have special things that are kind of, I would say, behind a paywall. But you don't have to do that. Mine is completely free at this point and for the foreseeable future. But if you do want to have a newsletter where you charge, that's the only time Substack takes any kind of cut from you. They take a 10%.
Interesting you bring up email marketing. That is That's one of my areas of expertise from corporate. What would you say to someone? I understand where the masses still receive their information, which is through some of the more typical channels like social media or through email marketing and things like that. I don't spend a ton of time in any one place. When I feel called, I will go out and do something. And I trust that by my putting my voice in that particular place and time, the universe will find my energetic match and sync us up. Do you find yourself ever wanting to do both, or you're just like you're all in to some of the more subtle or not subtle, non-mainstream?
Yeah, I think the way I'm thinking about it now is that I'll have my Substack for Love Activist Luminaries, which is all about, sharing my philosophical approach and my coaching methodology around building love for ourselves, care, compassion for ourselves, and then how that actually helps us be more effective business owners and agents of change. And when I want to sell my programs or do a launch or something like that, I'll actually do that through my email service provider. So some people will be like, that's horrible. That's too complicated. That's two things. But to me, it allows people in my Substack who might be interested in working with me to opt in to receive information on my offerings and my services.
I think that's much less complicated than something in the mainstream, in which when I go to launch something, obviously my website, but then also LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then like my email list, it's actually all very segmented. It's probably a lot more work. So it all gets to be true. It all gets to be what works for you. So
Yeah.
is there something that you are, and because we're on this little plane, nothing's inherently good or bad, right or wrong, but is there something that's like grinding your gears in a way that you want to chat about, something of passion or, that could give you the feels or not?
I think for me, really, there are so many things, but just for the sake of this conversation, I think it really is around money. And for those of us who are soul led service providers in particular, where so much of our care and concern is wrapped up in what we do, I get really irritated with the conventional approach in the coaching world and in the business world that isn't clear about the distinctions between what it means to be a service provider who's delivering very deep, transformative work and pricing in general. Like there's a thing, especially amongst, these kind of guru spiritual business coaches who are like, you just got to go high ticket and if you're charging 1,000, just add a zero. And there's just so much more to the energetics around money and pricing. And there's so much nuance to, well, who's the audience that this person is serving? Like it's not appropriate for everybody to charge $20,000 for a 6 or 12-month program because it's not appropriate for their audience. Does that mean that coach is doing something wrong or isn't valuing themselves? I hear that a lot. If you're not charging, super high ticket, it's because you're not valuing yourself because you have, blocks around value. Well, you might, but it also might be that you have wisdom that knows that your audience is not the appropriate audience for that kind of offering. So that really gets my goat when I just, I hear these things, these blanket statements out in the world. And, I just want to let everybody know that like if you have been feeling tender around pricing, you've been feeling like you're undercharging, maybe there's some opportunity to move toward the bigger picture of what's going on there. Who do you love working with? Who loves working with you? Who gets the best results with you? How do they get the best results? What is their financial situation? And building a sense of care and concern and understanding of what's sufficiency for me, what is sufficiency for my audience, and finding that sweet spot. And it doesn't happen instantly for a lot of us. It takes experimentation and making some mistake and learning until we really land on that place that feels really congruent and aligned with our own values.
I agree because I think it's all in the energetics and the intentions in which you build out your investment offers. And I personally know, and I like how you frame, we're not simply coaches, we're service providers. So for me, like, yes, I'm actually heading to get my ACC, my ICF credential coach this Saturday so that I can get in and do some stuff up in that world. But also I am enlightened and awakened that I'm reading energy and I have the corporate background, and it's all of these elements mixed together where I am providing a true service to be able to really meet who you are. From a soul perspective, not an ego, I will say I can coach anyone, anytime on anything. That's true. I'm skilled that way. That's a service I provide. And there is a subset of people that can actually hear and able to take in what I'm saying, and the intentions in which you set. When new coaches come to me and they're like, how did you come up with your investments? And what I will say is, boil down your last mainstream salary to an hourly rate. Let's start there. What would that be? What was that? Then figure out, what does it take to be you? What is that average between the two? And how does that feel? Is there any stickiness?
Yeah.
And then start there and see how that feels. And then as you build your arsenal or your experience, consider that the value you provide could increase over time. But again, if your intention is to just go out here and make money, nothing you will charge will be able to land well with you. And also I'll say two more things. There are people that you could charge $0 and they'll still not be ready to do the work. So it's that energetic match that someone's happy to provide that love and care via the investment in themselves and you to do the work. I've actually had that happen where I'm like, let me do this pro bono as I was trying to build my coaching hours. And they're like, nah, no, 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 no. I'm like, okay. And then I also do know a coach specifically who is incredible and what I would call very clean energy toward what they have to offer. And their hourly rate is over $3,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And
that
there's
is,
nothing wrong with that. That
no,
is congruent for that
there's
person. Absolutely. And their audience, their
exactly,
clientele.
exactly. So let me ask you this. Are there clients that you've had that, that haven't been able to meet the investment that you've asked for? And do you trust that that was just not supposed to happen and they'll go and find the help they need? Or do you connect them with someone? What happens then?
Yeah. So my approach is that over the years, I have experimented with different pricing models. I've never done the traditional old school sliding scale, but what I have done is I have met my clients who are clearly ready to do the work, but don't have the financial resources. I've negotiated with them and met them where they're at. And I actually, interestingly, I was reflecting on this morning in the shower when I worked at a branding agency. I was involved in pitching and winning business, for $1 million to $10,000. And what I learned is that when we worked with multinational corporations, we had a particular fee rate. When we worked with nonprofits, we had a completely different fee rate. It didn't mean we did less work or lower quality for the nonprofit. It meant that our multinationals were actually able to fund the work that we did for those nonprofits, kind of subsidize it. So I have taken this approach for clients who didn't quite have the resources, that they could have a different rate, but I set the rates for my clients who really do have the financial resources so that there is kind of a subsidization. I've also had clients who are like, I can't afford the full fee. This is what I can afford and not harm myself financially now. And also, I am going to catch up. I am going to make it to the point where ultimately I pay you that full fee once I start earning more money. And I think that's what's really beautiful about meeting people where they're at and trusting and coming with this like regenerative mindset versus a scarcity mindset, is it opens up all of these beautiful new possibilities. And then we're able to create these gorgeous transformative relationships that wouldn't have happened if we came to the opportunity with like, this is my price. And if you can't make it, then you have, money issues. And why don't you just take a freaking loan out or use it
Oh,
get a new
wow.
credit card,
Oh
like
no.
that old school hard selling stuff. It's like,
Wow.
it would completely close down opportunities. I've seen other coaches do that, and I've been on the receiving end of coaches doing that to me.
When you lead with that type of energy, which is like, that creates a new energy with you as a service provider, as a business
Oh,
owner.
that's a power over. That's a
Right?
dominator
That's
paradigm.
I love what you said. You just helped me have an epiphany moment. In a safe space, in a coaching container, I meet people where they are. I would like to now do that from a financial perspective as well, and not just have like, here's my fees and that's it.
Yeah. And I will say for some people, they need that. They need that for their sense of safety and sufficiency. They need to have, here's my fee and not be negotiable. But for me personally, I have I have circumstances and a relationship with money where I am able to, when the time calls for it, have that flexibility.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm sensing like a vibe of somewhere in between. Like I still have my rates, and also there could be wiggle room for pay what you can kind of vibes.
Yeah, I actually do. Thank you for saying pay what you can, because I do have a baseline that I can't financially and energetically go below. If I did, then I would be out of congruence with my own, energetic exchange with that client and out of congruence with what I require financially. So I definitely don't, just say, oh, pay whatever you want.
Yeah, right.
I will have like a lower end threshold. And for some people who can't meet that lower end threshold, like in one payment, I will work out a payment plan.
So it's not necessarily like a sliding scale, but you do have thresholds on either end.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, Jeni, what would you say to folks who it's beyond looking at us like woo woo, or we're talking about capitalism in a way that I like to think of history. I like to first of all understand where everything in our current world, where everything kind of originated, because by and large, not everything, by and large, the original reason or unique thought that a person had for putting something into place had an original something that worked in that space and time.
Yeah.
And over the past 100 years, we haven't really modernized like any of our systems or societal norms. And that's where I feel there's a lot of pinchiness coming up for, again, soul awakened folks like us. We're paving the new way. And of course, it can be challenging a lot. But what would you say to folks that are so amazingly in love with the way things are working today, but also those who might be awakening to what we're talking about, what we're starting to feel? Would you talk to them differently? Same? Do you even talk to those folks that are deep into late stage capitalism?
Yeah. I don't talk to those people these days because there's no purpose in it. I will say that a person who was very dear to me, somebody who was a best friend and who we have fallen out, she works in technology, and she definitely is surrounded by a really strong culture of what I call the dominator paradigm. And I think about that from the work of Rihanna Eisler. And she has beautiful work around partnership culture and, caring economy. So when I would have conversations with this friend of mine, she really didn't understand my language. And, I have an MBA. It's an MBA from a really leading edge school, but I know how to speak the language of corporate America. I know how to speak the language of the tech industry because I was in the Bay Area for 25 years. She didn't understand me. I think she thought I was kind of nuts, even though she loved me. And then over the course of a few years, she started to feel the pain. She became a leader of hundreds of people. And she hired me to work with her. And she was like, wow, I really am starting to see what you mean about the structures of capitalism as they are today. being very harmful. She was feeling the harm in her body. She was feeling the harm in her consciousness, in her emotional state. So I guess long story short is I don't talk to those people now, but I would say if any of those people are listening, I would say just open yourself to the possibility that you might actually feel better in your life, feel greater fulfillment, have better relationships with your loved ones in your community if you considered that there might be a softer, gentler, more caring way to be in business.
That's exactly right. We're not out here trying to prove anyone wrong. We're asking, when you feel the pinch, asking you to consider that there might be a different or additional ways than the one right way from 100 years ago. That's all.
I would also comment that the systems haven't changed because the systems are still benefiting the people
Yeah.
who have
Right.
the power.
I know. I used to say that all of our systems are broken, and somebody was like, beautifully, they're like, Amy, no, they're not. They're
They're
just
working exactly as they were designed.
they're operating exactly how they were. I was like, oh, right, right. Jeni, where can we find you?
Well, on the new Substack, there's not much there now, but it's going to be growing slowly but surely. And that's loveactivistluminaries.substack.com. And then I do have a LinkedIn, and I will be updating that this year, and people can connect with me there. It's Jeni M as in Mary Rogers.
Closing remarks as we wrap up.
I just, feel really grateful and honored to have this conversation with you and share this with listeners. And I do believe that, in the flavor of bell hooks, love is action. And when we take some time to really assess how we're feeling in our lives and assess what our lives look like, wherever we might find some tenderness or anger, challenges, whatever it might be that's out of alignment with how we wish to be, to just have some kindness and tenderness there and gently investigate, knowing that there's nothing wrong with you, that it's just a signal. It's a signal that's asking for attention and love and care. And that I think that's really the first step in transforming our lives and our businesses so that we can flourish in all the ways, financially, energetically, emotionally, and in our relationships.
Thank you, Jeni.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Amy.